There we go, and it says live. So, hi everybody. Welcome to this month's MacAdmin Monthly. I will also let everyone on our Slack channel know that it has begun. And this month we're joined from some people at JumpCloud, and I'm just going to let you get right into it, so we have some time for questions and conversation and such. So why don't you introduce yourselves and tell us what you do?
Will do. First and foremost, thanks so much, everyone, for even the opportunity to talk with you all today. My name is Greg Keller. I am the Chief Product Officer at a company located out west here in Boulder, Colorado, called JumpCloud. And the team and I, roughly 3 years ago, launched a product, what we called at the time and still call a directory as a service. And our hypothesis when this team was formed to go and build and execute and launch this product was to, quite honestly, provide a modern cloud-forward directory to organizations that had a disparate set of resources. Obviously, we're here talking about Mac in particular, but many of our customer client footprints include everything. Tons of Linux servers up in the cloud, employee endpoints that are a mixture between Windows and Mac OS or OS X, and of course, tons of other resources, meaning web-based apps, on-premise apps, wireless access through Radius. Our product is the authoritative version of identity for these organizations. But the cool part about this is that nothing exists on-prem. It is all based in the cloud, hyper secure, and again, is designed in the spirit of a traditional directory, an Active Directory, or an LDAP instance, for example, but with none of the baggage or overhead to manage all of that infrastructure. Directory servers, network connectivity, all of that gets remediated or obviated when utilizing JumpCloud. So what I thought I had planned today, as the guy who builds the product, is do not a hell of a lot of PowerPoint. I'll walk you through a couple quick things, but we're going to dive directly into products so you get to see the bits in action and watch how our now thousands of customers around the earth are leveraging our cloud-based directory. So without further ado, using the magic of Hangouts, I'm going to share my screen, and y'all will see yourselves in just a second. And let me jump into a quick deck. So as mentioned, what JumpCloud is a directory as a service. And again, without sort of playing a bunch of ground I just covered, we sit in the epicenter of our customers' networks. We are the core identity that then is utilized to centralize those employee identities and frankly service account identities in order to emit them and connect them to resources that they need when they need them. Again, our team here is not bent on any given OS or vendor for that matter. Microsoft, in addition to Apple, in addition to any Linux distro, in addition to any application, is of our focus. It's our responsibility to get your identities connected to those things. And we do this through a cloud-based delivery mechanism, but through the obsessiveness over protocols, specifically, as you'll hear in a moment, LDAP, Radius, SAML, and a highly advanced REST API to completely automate your authentication and authorization chores all through our RESTful API. So let's move into some of these before we jump into our demonstration. So again, we sit as the source of truth of identities, and we often are responsible for being the directory underpinning Office 365 or G Suite, meaning we own those identities. We can import them, but ultimately, we are the directory that owns all of their password changes, et cetera, so we can emit to them highly secure hashes of passwords. And again, each of these endpoints, whether it's your MacBook, or the user console, or even applications themselves, we govern multi-factor authentication for. So if you have a standard TOTP generator like Google Authenticator, or perhaps Duo for mobile, even your MacBook we can control second factor authentication, again, for hyper secure access to these resources. As mentioned now a few times already in the short time we've been chatting, we are all about being cross-platform. We have a huge amount of respect for what Microsoft did from the launch of Windows 2000 and their directory services, but now times have changed. Your Office looks a lot different than it did in 2000. And big old fat monitors sitting on your desk and Ethernet cables that ran everywhere. Now you're a mobile with shiny silver laptops that everyone can transfer. And again, we need to support all of the operating systems that can be transported around in those nice silver shiny containers. We also do this in a way that's much more progressive than an Active Directory, which would sort of necessitate VPN just to get connected to their domain controllers. All of that sort of antiquated approach just to connect a resource to our directory goes away through much more modern TLS-driven protocols, meaning private and public secure certificates and keys are how we are maintaining this very deep security integration between our endpoints, or your endpoints, and your directory up in the cloud. Moving further back into the, as mentioned about protocols, our product is such sort of created on a centralized proprietary directory infrastructure. We're not, another way of saying this is we haven't just put Active Directory or LDAP up in the cloud and labeled it our own. Not that at all. We have our own highly advanced global architecture, and by global I mean quite literally edge nodes all around the earth that are maintaining our secure instances of your directory information secure for extremely fast response times. But the protocols sit in front of our directory to interoperate many resources, be it SAML to sign into various apps, or perhaps LDAP for, as an example, where we're not LDAP, but we smell, taste, and feel just like it to a Jira or a billion other applications that can integrate with a directory, what they think is an LDAP directory. So protocols rule the day for us. Finally, as it relates to networks, another protocol is extremely popular in our repertoire, and we call it Radius as a Service. Very similar to LDAP as a service, we effectively spin up on your behalf Radius servers anywhere, anytime you need them without any of the management. So for example, ensure your employees are logging into your corporate Wi-Fi's with their unique credentials, and no longer sharing sort of a SSID and password that you probably wrote on the whiteboard. And I know people right now are shaking their head up and down because I know you do it. This gives you a way to improve your security posture by ensuring your employees are individually using their credentials, the same ones that they logged into their MacBook will be used to log into that corporate Wi-Fi or an application. Single point of authentication for all of these resources. And Radius is definitely a huge part of that. So finally, before we show the bits, JumpCloud is used by our customers for the centralization of their identities. It's core to the organizations that use us. All resources use one password that is highly secure, hashed and salted, and we emit through very secure protocols to connect to those resources, typically TLS or HTTPS, in order to give much greater efficiency. We don't want you to download, install and configure LDAP anymore. This is an antiquated approach. You should benefit from the protocol. Frankly, dick around with server software anymore. That's on us to keep it always up, always available, always secure. And last, the security posture. The team and I started this with a high degree of security in our backgrounds. So this isn't our first rodeo in this space. So that beyond the founding team members and the crew of engineers that are working on here, we increase the security of your organization by managing the password strength and periodic changes. Even for your MacBooks, we control when you need to rotate them and the complexity. As mentioned, we cover multi-factor authentication through all of those endpoints. And finally, and most importantly, you as an IT admin, no matter where you are, can control either providing for or redacting access of a user to the resources they need, including their machines. So with that, I'm going to jump over into our demo. So you'll see in the background, I have this Parallels instance running. It's obviously I'm not going to be demonstrating my own MacBook because I want to show you in a pristine environment as if this was some, well, frankly it is. It's just a virtual machine, but this could be a physical box. So we'll be visiting this Parallels endpoint quite frequently in this demo. But let's jump into a couple of other resources first. So let me go back to mine. And sorry, you're going to enter the wormhole for a moment. And let me jump back into my Chrome and into JumpCloud itself. For those of you who haven't seen the JumpCloud product, you're looking at the administrative console. There are two consoles. One, where the admin operates your enterprise. That's this. And then there's the user portal, which is another console that's dedicated to your users. It's where they will do their own, password resetting, manage their own data, like their addresses and all that kind of stuff. So we have a end user portal that I won't be showing too much today. We're going to stick within here in the admin console. The admin console gives you the full control over the user objects in your directory, like you see here, this guy, Greg Agasta. It also gives you complete control over the systems in your organization. Let's discuss this because obviously we're talking to a number of Mac admins. When you see these green lit up instances, you see a Windows machine, you see a Linux machine, and you see that this is my Parallels box. They're all checking in as good. These other ones, don't worry about. Those are just offline machines. But how do we connect with machines is typically the first question that's asked. And that's done through the installation of a lightweight and hyper-secure agent, which is only accessible to administrators. This agent is the thing which communicates only outbound through port 443, so you never have to open up a port for us, and is looking for instructions from JumpCloud. Those instructions could be myriad. It could be, do I have a new user account to add? Do I have to execute a script which JumpCloud can execute in our commands center? Do I have to change permissions of the user from standard user to admin, et cetera, et cetera? So there's tons of things which we'll show you in a second of how we interoperate with systems. Many of our customers use us in a product which I'm sure you're familiar with, Jamf Casper, as sort of like the peanut butter and jelly combo to manage Macs at the enterprise level. They're using us for the core directory and services, and they're using Jamf for DEP and for imaging and a bunch of other kinds of things. So as a sidebar, you can go to our video channel on YouTube, just search JumpCloud, and you'll see a number of webinars my team and I have done with the Jamf crew. I've spoken up at JamfCon just as a point of reference. Moving further, tags we're not going to talk a lot about. That's a grouping mechanism, especially if you're like a Linux admin, you want to have many users combined with many systems. Tags will enable you to do that. We are a complete SSO solutions offering hundreds of apps, so you'll be able to do single sign-on with our product as well. And of course, as mentioned, integration with other directories, including G Suite, which I'll be demoing in a second, and of Office 365. Radius, as mentioned, we build Radius servers so you can spin them up, provide your secret key, and give unique access to groups of people, employees, so to speak. So they, they're parameterized. They're only allowed access to very specific parts of your network. You can control that through JumpCloud. All right, that's a quick 60,000-foot tour. Let's get into some actual use cases. One of the cool things to demonstrate is as follows. I'm going to pretend I am an admin and I have a brand new employee, and I choose to, I'm going to show you a use case of importing a Google identity, taking ownership of that identity, and then start emitting it to places, including that MacBook, which you saw a moment ago. So in order to do this, let's bail out of the JumpCloud admin console, and I'm going to go directly into my Google Administrative Console, which I'm sure many of you out there being IT people, you've seen this before. This is a live production domain. We call it Demo Jump Cloud for demonstration and testing purposes. And let's light this up. So I'm going to pick on a guy. In fact, he's new to our organization. His name is John Vajda, and he's sitting right across from me smiling. He's new on our product team. So I am going to create this identity inside of Google. And the only reason why I'm doing this here, folks, is just to show the importability of an external identity. We could be pushing out identities to Google, but I love the sort of flow from Google into us and then into a MacBook. It's kind of cool to witness. So I'll create this identity of Mr. Vajda, and great, he's live. He's a new member of our org. So what I'll do now is bail out of this Google admin console, head back into Jump Cloud, and let's get John's identity in here. To do that is simple. I go into directories. I've already got a secure, permanently tethered connection through OAuth and obviously through HTTPS into Google. You don't need any middle tier software. We do everything through secure API handshakes. I'm simply going to import, and let's find John Vajda here. There he is. Here's his Google identity, and let's just select him discreetly, and I will import John. Success. This is telling me that John is now inserted into the directory, and let's go take a look at him before we need to bind him to resources. So I will look up Vajda. There he is. So John was added to the Jump Cloud directory, but is sort of imported in a way where we're not harming or affecting any access. That's why you see this orange triangle there, or this circle rather. And what this is giving the IT admin is complete control over when they want to sort of fully integrate John into their resources. So John could be invited to Jump Cloud at this point and say, welcome, to reset your password, and then Jump Cloud, the IT admin has to do nothing. Like literally, John gets to set his own password. Because John is sitting across the room and I'm not going to light up his Google account right now, as an admin, I too can light up his account, just like you could in an LDAP or an Active Directory. And I am simply going to add a password for him and light him up. Stand by. Let me make sure I got it right. Okay. So save John, and now you can see John is active. But now that means I can light John up. I can give him his MacBook. I can give him any resource he needs. So before I do that, let's go into this Parallels and let's take a look. I'm currently logged in, as you see, as just an anonymous Mac admin. It's just a service account. In fact, I could be managing this remotely with Jump Cloud. Many of our sort of hardened admins will typically have 3 user accounts that they add to a particular box. One, a local only managed account. Number 2 is a Jump Cloud global managed account so that they can log in at any time and have all of that remote sort of operability against that endpoint. And number 3 is the actual user's account, which Jump Cloud will manage. If I go into system preferences right now, you'll see that it's just MacAdmin, and I haven't turned off the guest user thing. I could fire off a policy out of Jump Cloud to disable that if I wanted to. I just forgot to do that. But right now, MacAdmin is the only account on the machine. I got to get John on there. How do I do that? So even if I were remote and this machine were on, like it is, let's go into Jump Cloud. Here's John's account, and I'll go into John's details. What I'm going to do is go into System Bindings, and right here, as you can see, is that MacBook. We'll pretend that says John's MacBook. To control various administrative, aspects to his machine, we trust him, so to speak. I can provide him that level of access. So I'll give him sudo privs on on his own machine. At any moment, remotely, I can whack that. I could turn him back into a standard user. But for now, because he's got to get some software installed, let's pretend I'm going to make him a sudo or an administrative user. In addition, I am going to provision out his brand new Office 365 account and his Google Apps account. Remember, I imported him from Google, but JumpCloud hasn't taken ownership. By selecting that, instantly I take ownership of that account. And henceforth, John will change his password once in JumpCloud, and all of his resources will use that same password secure hash. Let me save, and let's go back into my Parallels box. So what's going on behind the scenes? Roughly every 60 seconds, this agent is doing an outbound call, as mentioned. Remember that port 443 you didn't have to open? We're making a call out to JumpCloud, looking for those instructions. Let's see if your user is here yet. So as you can see, he's not in there yet because the agent hasn't sort of gone through its rotation. What I'll do is let's just spend some time. I'm going to log out as this particular MacAdmin. And voila, there's John. So John, as an account, has never hit this machine. Let's log in. So the password that I'm entering right now is John's JumpCloud password, not a local managed password. I'll hit go, and you'll see in a moment that John in this new user account is brand new. And just like you've witnessed about 1 billion times, like you're seeing now, this brand new account, JumpCloud has provisioned, is on the box, and John can log into his own new MacBook and get his workday going. So let's pause here. As you can see, that all works very fast. What we as an organization have done is tried to painstakingly work, very tightly within, Apple standards, both from a visual user interface standard, as certainly as well under the covers. We're using all of their, APIs. We're not doing anything that Apple hasn't given us guidance on. So it's all extremely solid, as you'd expect, and most importantly, hyper secure. We've had to have some long conversations with Apple folks about some of the things that we've witnessed inside the OS itself in order to ensure the highest degree of security for your endpoints, our customers' endpoints. So what I will do now is just stop yapping, and I would love to take some questions.
That's great. I'm glad I didn't try to jump in because I think you ultimately covered a lot of the questions I initially had. But I'm curious, what do you see as your target company size, right? Who are you targeting? Larger enterprises, mid, small?
Great question. And unabashedly, it is the small to medium enterprise. So we have customers that are in the many, let's say, north of 4,000, in between 4,000 and 5,000 employees. And we have customers in the few hundred. And frankly, we have customers in the 20 to 50. So, but our sweet spot is in, probably the let's say the mid hundreds, quite a few hundred employees to roughly 1,000.
Okay, yeah, I guess it makes sense. Like the companies that don't necessarily have some large security staff or large IT staff to deal with all this.
Absolutely, we deal with them every day. Our company is currently both SSA 16. We've been through that whole process, as well as SOC 2 Type 1, and we're in the process of moving towards Type 2.
Okay, so I think you mentioned you expose all these other protocols, right? So if there's some device that can't run your agent, we can just talk normal SAML or LDAP or something like that.
Got it. And agents are sort of exclusive to system endpoints. But there are tons of other resources out there that require various protocols. You may be using OpenVPN, so you want to use Radius. You may be using, I mentioned Jira, and that's sort of this on-prem, monolithic ticketing system, but it uses LDAP, so you can use that. It doesn't really matter to us. We focus deeply on those protocols.
And a product like Jira that's just going to use sort of the old school LDAP, how's that transported across? It's LDAP-S, or you
That's
have
right.
okay.
Yep, we offer both Start TLS as well as port 636, which is SSL. Obviously, we prefer you, from a security posture, you should be using SSL.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I've monopolized the questions. Anybody else with some questions?
What two-factor methods do you support?
So, right, in terms of the form factor, it's all TOTP right now, meaning we're using that standard, and any second factor device that can produce a TOTP key, we will integrate with. So typically the process is, I've got Duo for mobile, and my admin says you need to have MFA enabled, and you get an email from JumpCloud's system directly as an employee. And then it walks you through the process up to and including scanning the QR code on your device to then register it with JumpCloud. And then we've unified you with the MFA process. Then everything, it doesn't matter. Your TOTP key for your user portal could be governed by that. When you enter in your MacBook and you see your password field, and then JumpCloud will introduce the second factor TOTP field, that uses the same key generator. So that's the answer right now. In the future, we're looking, quite honestly, at a number of different approaches. Being an agent on a machine gives us a lot of amazing capabilities, up to and including biometric, among other things. And, kind of interesting integrations, if you're reading between the lines, with some other third-party integration partners we're working with right now.
Do you, I'm trying to think of how this would work. Do you have any ability to get a machine in a working state from an image or from whatever management agents might be on the machine to get your agent up and running?
Yeah.
And then you can just hand a machine to a new employee and have them log in and everything works?
Absolutely. For sure. We have our own sort of methods that JumpCloud can assist you with, but working with Jamf, that's in fact one of the sort of, I mentioned peanut butter and jelly in terms of our synergy. They have a really well-known integration with us. And let me elaborate a story. We have a very large customer. We share a very large customer based in New York City. Actually, they're all over the United States. They are in the business of delivery of recipes, meaning actual boxes filled with food that you can eat at night. You can probably guess who they are. Thousands of employees. One of their MacBooks went missing, and it was found in a unique way, which was it was sold on Craigslist. The user, the new customer, so to speak, bought this laptop. They fired it up, and Jamf, through integration with us, the first thing that the user saw, or this new sort of guy who bought it off Craigslist saw, was sign in with your JumpCloud username and password, to which he Googled JumpCloud, because it's just some mope in New York City who wanted a new MacBook. And we kindly said, let's get you in touch with this particular customer of ours. And it turned out it was a stolen laptop. That's a long-winded way of saying using the agent in the deployment methodology with Jamf gives you amazing abilities to physically ship a laptop with the agent on it, have them open up the laptop and sign in for the first time, and everything just works. To other methods that we have utilizing our API in a very similar method. As an example, we have a huge swath of customers that leverage our API for imaging, in this case, Linux instances, such that when the ephemeral Linux instance, is spun up, it then makes its initial call through our API to, number one, add the appropriate users to that particular machine. Number two, does it need multi-factor authentication? Number three, what groups, POSIX groups belong in that Linux instance? That's just an example for Linux. You could do that for Windows or Mac. So yeah, lots of opportunities if you guys are API friendly.
Wow, sounds really, really well thought out.
It's been fun. I will not, this has been a labor of love, but to work on something progressive like this has been quite interesting. And we have a lot of work to do, lots of cool features to sort of roll out and implement, but we'd love to have some feedback.
What, well, if you're looking for feedback, do you have a trial or some way people can look at this?
Absolutely. In fact, we give away the whole product, all features, free for up to 10 users. So we basically our kimono is fully open. We challenge you to go and leverage the product, make strong decisions without even having to talk to any sales reps. And if we're not doing our job right, you don't understand the product, or you may have much larger questions about integration. That's why we heavily invest in our customer success staff, which is a very technical team here.
Okay, that sounds pretty good. What brought you to this? What were you doing before JumpCloud?
So long question, but I won't belabor it because you guys will all fall asleep. I have an obsessive compulsion for startups. So this is my fourth, and I work very closely with a venture team as basically as the person who institute the product vision and product processes at these organizations. But I've been in software R&D since the very early 90s, well before the cloud was a fart. So now it's a function of how to modernize people, getting them thinking in new and progressive ways. And directories, let's face it, you can't get more core than that. And that's why it's the most challenging and the most exciting. But yeah, it's been a great career of working on extremely interesting products with beautiful people, both customers and the people I get to work with every day.
Cool. How long's JumpCloud been around now then?
In market, just about 3 years, but in incubation, about 4.5 years.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have any questions?
There's a bunch of people muted. I don't know if they're saying anything.
Yeah, if you're on the Hangout, feel free to unmute and jump in.
I got one.
Go.
Would you consider yourself like an identity provider like Okta or OneLogin, a competitor to them, or I guess a different realm of products?
Awesome question, and we get that every day. In the world of SSO, we are sort of, again, kissing cousins. You saw that we have an SSO kind of aspect to our product. But as a great example, many of our customers leverage both of us. Most typically, it's an Okta. We don't see OneLogin that much in the field. It's typically Okta. And they're using us as the core directory service. And they layer on, through LDAP, in fact, Okta as the employee-facing sort of SSO portal. So what they do is unify the employee identity such that Okta is taking care of the web applications and JumpCloud is taking care of the system management and Radius chores and other LDAP chores. So that's what we typically see. So not competition per se, more in cooperation. And again, especially with Okta, we work very well with them. In fact, I'll be visiting with them yet again in California in just 2 weeks.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay, questions going once, going twice. All right, well, thank you very much for your time, Greg. It was really, really informative.
Awesome. I really, really thank you guys just for the time to do this. It's, it makes me kind of icky when vendors come on, but we're pretty passionate about what we do. And anyone has any questions, you can send them to greg@jumpcloud.com.
Fantastic. Thanks again.
Have a great one. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, we've used JumpCloud a little bit, as I was mentioning before we started the Hangout, a little bit in my role with MacTech, and it seems to work really well. But I don't think I realized the depth of the product. So one of the salespeople from JumpCloud contacted me. I said, "Yeah, I don't think enough people know about you. So come on along." Cool. So the normal order of business is just, do we have questions, general admin questions, things bugging you, things you can't solve, looking for advice? You're both new here. What do you do?
Sure. So I'm a support engineer at Warby Parker.
At where?
Warby Parker.
Oh yeah, sure. Fashion industry, New York. Here we are. Cool. And what do you do?
I'm the Mac administrator at OGA, and we're a large design and advertising company.
Awesome.
So I handle the global Mac configuration and administration.
Long-time Mac stronghold, right?
Yeah.
Very cool. How big are the environments?
We have about 2,000 endpoints,
Oh, that's good.
and we have about 15 global offices.
Nice.
About 1,000 users, probably 3/4 of that are endpoints.
Nice. Yeah, someone in the Slack channel is saying APFS boots, which is kind of fun. Have you seen in the new betas, they're including APFS as a...
Oh, they do. If I haven't seen them put it in.
In the betas. And some guy on Twitter gave instructions on how to get it to boot. Your boot volume, which is fun.
Kapine.
I wouldn't do
No, not
that.
just some guy.
Was it? I thought someone else started that.
Oh, no, well, sure. Well, Kapine just brought it up in the Slack channel.
Oh, Papine brought it up in the Slack channel, yes. Speaking of Papine, he's on the Hangout, I think. Papine, you should do a DuoSec talk sometime. Or get someone at DuoSec to do a talk here and talk about your product.
Sure.
Good. Has anyone been testing the new betas of macOS? Anybody digging in deep? I have it on one machine now. I haven't seen anything terrible, which is good.
I got the urge to download it yesterday and then passed.
Yeah.
Only because it was a holiday.
Yeah. Good idea. All right. Questions from the Hangout crew? Struggling with anything? If not, we're going to wrap up. I'll take your silence as a no. Thanks, everybody. See you next month. And I think next month we're actually going to be on time. This month we moved it back a week because our normal meeting time collided with Valentine's Day, and my wife really wanted me home. So I was home enjoying Valentine's Day, but next month I'll have to look at the date. Second Tuesday of every month is the rule. So next month, March, we should be back on the second Tuesday. Thanks, everybody. Bye.